Today, I want to talk about one of the boldest performances we've seen on a national stage in years, Kendrick Lamar's 2025 Super Bowl halftime show, and why it's much more than just a musical set. It's a rhetorical event. I'm going to analyze this performance using African American rhetorical theory, which I'll argue is the most fitting lens to understand how persuasion, meaning making, and cultural resistance were happening in real time on that stage. We'll get into what African American rhetoric actually is, how it helps us interpret Lamar's artistic choices, and why more traditional rhetorical approaches fall short when we're looking at artifacts like this one. Kendrick Lamar's 2025 halftime show wasn't just a performance, it was a statement, a calculated, multi-layered expression of Black cultural identity, historical memory, and resistance. Set against the backdrop of the most commercialized event in American sports, Lamar delivered something radically different, a meditation on Black life, death, and endurance. I chose this performance because of its symbolic weight. It wasn't simply about entertainment, it was about representation, about speaking truth in a space not designed to hold it. And to understand why this matters, you have to understand Kendrick Lamar. He's not just a rapper, he's an award-winning storyteller and social commentator. His lyrics confront police brutality, systemic racism, mental health, and spiritual conflict with poetic precision. Albums like To Pimp a Butterfly and Damn are studied in college courses. His song All Right became an anthem during the Ferguson protests. In 2018, he was awarded a Pulitzer Prize for his artistic vision and powerful lyrics challenging social injustice and racial inequality. Kendrick is operating at the intersection of art and activism, and his performance at the Super Bowl was an extension of that work, placed on the biggest stage in America. Now let's talk about theory. Why African American rhetorical theory? Why not classical rhetoric or visual rhetoric? Here's why. Traditional rhetorical models, like Aristotle's appeals to ethos, logos, and pathos, are designed to assess formal persuasion, often in elite or civic context. They're rooted in Western philosophical traditions and typically assume shared norms around rationality, authority, and public discourse. But those frameworks don't account for the rhetorical strategies developed by African Americans who have historically been excluded from dominant institutions and public discourse. As scholar Jacqueline Joynes Royster points out in her book Traces of a Stream, we need rhetorical theories that acknowledge and legitimize the intellectual and cultural traditions of people whose communication practices were formed in response to oppression, displacement, and resistance. African American rhetorical theory is grounded in survival, resilience, and creativity. It sees rhetoric not just as persuasion, but as a cultural tool, deeply embodied and often non-traditional, that builds community, tells truth, and subverts systems of power. Scholars like Geneva Smitherman describe African American rhetoric as rooted in oral tradition, jazz aesthetics, the Black church, and street culture. She highlights how features like call and response, repetition, and rhythmic flow create communal engagement and cultural affirmation. These are rhetorical moves that don't just inform, they perform meaning. Then you have Henry Louis Gates Jr. and his concept of signifying, where Black speakers use irony, indirection, and double meanings to communicate in layered ways, often sending one message to the dominant audience and a deeper one to those in the know. Carmen Kennard pushes us to recognize Black language and literacy as central to education and critical consciousness. In her work, she challenges institutions to value Black rhetorical traditions not as deviations from the norm, but as the norm in their own right, with their own rules, depth, and intellectual richness. And Adam Banks, particularly in Digital Griots, bridges this theory into the digital age. He frames African American rhetorical practices as crucial to understanding how Black communities remix, riff, and circulate messages in online spaces. His work helps us connect Lamar's digital presence and layered performance aesthetics with longer legacies of Black verbal art. So why is this theory appropriate for analyzing Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance? Because Lamar himself is working directly in this tradition. His lyrics, his stagecraft, his references, they're all part of a broader lineage of African American rhetorical performance. He's not trying to persuade in the sense of Aristotle. He's testifying, he's signifying. He's using his body, his voice, and his music to create meaning that resonates differently depending on who's listening. More conventional rhetorical theories might let us talk about his diction, or his metaphors, or his appeal to emotions, but they would miss the cultural resonance. They would overlook the coded language, the embodied gestures, the historical memory being activated. African American rhetorical theory gives us the right tools to ask the right questions. Not just what is he saying, but who is he saying it to? How is he saying it? And what legacies is he drawing from when he performs? This theory gives us context, it gives us cultural clarity, and most importantly, it gives us Kendrick Lamar's work the critical seriousness it deserves, as a site of rhetorical power, resistance, and Black excellence. Let's start with the stage. Using the full field, it's set up to resemble a video game controller as well as a prison yard. That's not just aesthetic, it's symbolic. The controller evokes themes of control, manipulation, and resistance. It also signals that the stakes are high. This is a game, but it's deadly serious. In a space dominated by corporate power, this image flips the script, suggesting that Lamar is the one holding the controller, guiding the narrative, calling the plays, even as he critiques the system he's performing within. The audience is both the Superdome in New Orleans, but also the millions around the world who are watching live, and who will also rewatch and analyze in the days to come. And then there's Samuel L. Jackson, dressed literally as Uncle Sam, red, white, and blue top hat and all. It's a jarring image. You're expecting his bombastic personality, but this isn't a patriotic cameo. It's satire. Jackson's version of Uncle Sam is aggressive, almost mocking, making us question what it means to be claimed by America and who gets to do the claiming. This is classic signifying, using a culturally familiar image, in this case, a symbol of American nationalism, and flipping it. Jackson's Uncle Sam becomes a kind of narrator, reminding Kendrick that he's playing a game. He's reminding us that Black lives in America are always under surveillance, always under pressure to perform patriotism while being denied justice. He appears throughout the set, both encouraging and chastising Kendrick about his tone, company, and emotions.
Salutations! It's your Uncle Sam, and this is the Great American Game.
The set list isn't random, it's a narrative arc. Kendrick builds tension with unreleased tracks, escalates with crowd favorites like DNA and Humble, then pulls back into introspection with Euphoria and Man at the Garden. By the time we hit Not Like Us and TV Off, it's clear the songs are chapters, and the whole show is a story about Black identity, resistance, and reclaiming power on his own terms. The performance opens with GNX preview song and Squabble Up, both heavy with urgency and coded language. These songs aren't mainstream singles. They function as a kind of prologue, setting a tone of conflict and alertness. The title Squabble Up alone signals the tension, a warning that this is not going to be your typical feel-good halftime show.
No! Too loud, too reckless, too ghetto. Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play the game? Then tighten up! Somebody pray for me. It's been a day for me.
Then comes Humble and DNA, two of Lamar's most popular and hard-hitting tracks. These are about identity and contradiction. When Humble starts, it's not just a song, it's a challenge. Kendrick's telling everyone to sit down, but he's doing it from the middle of the biggest stage in the country. Also, the flag imagery in Humble doesn't just evoke patriotism, it exposes it. With dancers embodying the red, white, and blue, Kendrick reminds us that the foundation of America's so-called greatness was built on the backs of enslaved Black people. It's a visual confrontation. The choreography looks like unity, but it carries the weight of history, of forced labor, erasure, and ongoing struggle, right there in the middle of the most American spectacle of them all. In DNA, he says, "I got power, poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA." That's a line that resonates through an African-American rhetorical lens. It's a testimony. It affirms the coexistence of struggle and strength in Black identity, and it speaks directly to Black audiences while challenging white spectators to listen differently. When Peekaboo and the first version of Not Like Us hit, we see a shift. Kendrick is playing with visibility and misdirection. Peekaboo plays into the themes of performance, spectacle, and who gets to look away. The pump fake version of Not Like Us teases the crowd before the full song lands later. That's more than a performance trick, it's a rhetorical delay. He's controlling anticipation, flipping the audience's expectation to emphasize that this isn't just entertainment, it's commentary. Then we get a tonal shift with Luther and All the Stars, both featuring the singer SZA. These songs invite a more expansive, even hopeful vision of Black futures. All the Stars in particular is cinematic. It was the anthem for Black Panther and carries the weight of Afrofuturism and empowerment. Then Uncle Sam returns, telling Kendrick that this slower, quieter version is what America wants. But he is quickly interrupted.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what America wants. Nice and calm. You're almost there. Don't mess this. Oh no. It's a cultural divide. I'm gonna get it on the floor. You really about to do it? 40 acres in the music. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to break the game, but you can't fake influence. They get on it like that. Hey, I'm tripping, I'm sliding.
Kendrick closes the show with Not Like Us in full, followed by TV Off, and it's no accident. Not Like Us pushes back against bigger systems, especially the way the music industry profits off Black culture. And yeah, it's a shot at Drake, but it's more than just beef. Like Black Twitter, it mixes jokes, shade, and critique in a way that's sharp, fast, and deeply cultural. Kendrick isn't just throwing punches, he's making a statement about truth, community, and who gets to speak with authority. When Kendrick references 40 acres and a mule, he's not just invoking history, he's calling out a broken promise. It's a direct nod to the unfulfilled reparations once promised to formerly enslaved Black people, and by dropping it into the performance, he's highlighting how those debts, material and moral, still linger. When TV Off hits and Kendrick walks off stage, there are no fireworks, no final bow, just silence and refusal. It's like he's literally cutting the feed, pulling the plug on the spectacle, stepping out of the gaze and reminding us that he controls the narrative. It's a mic drop without needing to drop the mic.
Turn this TV off. 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 Turn this.
This is exactly where African American rhetorical theory shows up strongest, through silence, refusal, and control of the narrative. Kendrick isn't just performing, he's signifying, testifying, and using absence just as powerfully as presence. So in this way, Kendrick's performance becomes a masterclass in African American rhetoric. It doesn't conform to dominant expectations of clarity or comfort, it resists them. And in doing so, it does exactly what this theory prepares us to recognize. Rhetoric as resistance, as identity, and as radical meaning making. So why does this matter? Because analyzing cultural artifacts like this one through African American rhetorical theory allows us to recognize Black speech, art, and performance as legitimate rhetorical work, not marginal, not just expressive, but critical, intellectual, and persuasive in its own right. Lamar's performance challenges what we consider rhetoric. He redefines it as something embodied, musical, spiritual, and political. And African American rhetorical theory gives us the tools to not just watch, but to understand. In a media landscape saturated with commentary, this theory helps us slow down, contextualize, and give proper historical weight to what's happening when Black artists use their platforms to speak. It reminds us that resistance doesn't always look like argument. It can look like dance, like silence, like survival. In the end, this performance isn't just about music. It's about Black life, Black resistance, and Black imagination. It's about what it means to speak truth in a space that wasn't designed for your truth.